Hey everybody, welcome back to Political Science 101 at Simmons College. Today we're going to talk about the levels of government. We talked last week about the different branches of the federal government, but other levels of government have branches too. Let me tell you what I mean by that. There are three levels of government in the United States. The federal government. That is the national government. Covers all 50 states, D.C., and the territories. There are state governments, and there are local governments. So the levels of government are federal, state, and local. Let's unpack that a little bit and talk about what that means. You already know quite a bit about the federal government because most of you have seen the videos we've had, and some of you have got the textbook and been able to read up a little bit, and I'll talk about the textbook later in the video. But for now, know that federal government is what I just said, nationwide. All 50 states plus a handful of territories. What are territories? Well, they're parts. They are a part of the United States that are not an actual state. What's the difference? Well, the difference that you need to know for this class is that a state has full representation in Congress. So every state has 2 senators and members of the House of Representatives who get a vote. And their vote is a full vote. It counts towards all legislation or all acts of Congress, all activity in Congress. An example of a territory would be Puerto Rico. It's not a state, but it is part of this country. Federal government, nationwide. Remember, as I've mentioned in previous videos, federal law is the ultimate law in the United States. There have been many, many, many legal and physical disagreements over the supremacy of federal law versus state law throughout the history of this country, and the federal government wins those arguments. There's some language in the Constitution that's relevant here. Again, the Constitution is in the appendix of your textbook, but if you don't have a textbook yet, it's also, you can Google it online. You'll get United States Constitution. It'll come right up there. And the 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution gives all power to the states that's not specifically given to the federal government in the Constitution itself. That's important. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But anything that the Constitution, any power that it gives to the federal government, that is an ultimate power. It overrides all state and local government powers. As I mentioned on the last video, of all the disagreements we've had in this country about the supremacy of federal law, the most obvious one is the American Civil War. 700,000 dead Americans. Not just white male soldiers, but people of all genders, and certainly lots of black soldiers and black people who died in that war for their own freedom. But it was a question, first and foremost, over slavery. But that question itself had to do with whether or not the federal government had the ability to regulate things and override state law. And it turns out the federal government does have that right. So, state governments, local governments. I know you know a little bit about these things. You do. You know that most of you, if you live in Kentucky, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, we call it a Commonwealth, but it is functionally, it is a state just like the other 49 states. What makes it a state? Well, again, it was admitted to the Union under the Constitution, and Kentucky has 2 senators, and and representatives in Congress. Kentucky gets to have a say, a disproportionately powerful say, in who is the president in the Electoral College. And Kentucky has a capital. The federal government has a capital, Washington, D.C. Kentucky has a capital. You probably know it's in Frankfort. Frankfort, which is about 45-minute drive from Louisville. It's almost in the middle, not quite, but it's kind of in the middle of Kentucky, and it's on the map. It's not a very big town, but it's a very important town because that's where Kentucky has, just like the federal government in Washington, Kentucky has 3 branches of government. You've got the executive branch, that's the governor. You've got the legislative branch. There is a Kentucky House of Representatives and a Kentucky Senate, just like in Washington with the feds. There's also judicial branch. There's a state court system. There's a state Supreme Court. So when it comes to understanding the branches of state government, well, if you listen to the last couple of videos about federal government, it's pretty much the same thing. The difference is the jurisdiction, which is a word lawyers like to throw around. It just means, the power. Like where is the power of the government? Like what does the government have power over? Like where is that government's power? Who do they have authority over? The jurisdiction of Kentucky's 3 branches are just within the borders of Kentucky. So Kentucky's governor is the executive within the borders of Kentucky. Same thing for Kentucky's legislature and Kentucky's judicial branch, Kentucky's courts. This is one of those moments in this class where I'll say that if you get almost nothing else from this semester, I hope you remember what I'm getting ready to say. State government has more authority and power over your and my everyday lives than the other branches of government, even more than the federal government. Yes, the federal law is more powerful. Yes, the federal law always supersedes, overrides state law. But when you know which laws are state laws and which ones are federal, you know that we really live our lives under this umbrella of federal law, but state law running the day-to-day activities and regulating day-to-day activities and everyday lives of most Americans. All Americans, actually. Some really obvious examples would be things like drug laws. I'm not sure if you all know this. I don't think I've said it on this video, but I've recently, during this pandemic, I've actually moved for a number of reasons. I've moved from Kentucky to Arizona. I'm coming to you from my house in Arizona. Why do I mention that? Because although I do not partake, I don't judge people who do, and Arizona completely legalized marijuana last year. It is legal to grow it, sell it, possess it. Is that the case in Kentucky? No. Is that the case in Tennessee? No. Is it the case in Colorado? Yes. Those are state laws. Yeah, the federal government has some laws against marijuana, but if you are pulled over in a vehicle going down the interstate, going down I-65, pulled over by police, let's say it's LMPD or Kentucky State Police, and they charge you with, rightfully or wrongfully, with possession of marijuana, or they say you have so much marijuana in your vehicle, they charge you with possession with intent, with the intent to, they're basically calling you a drug dealer because of the amount of marijuana you have on you. That is something that is up to a point, no longer illegal in Arizona, but it's very illegal in Kentucky, and you can go to prison for it. In fact, I haven't met any of you all in person this semester, of course, because of the pandemic, but I tell you, if you're like me, you know people who have gone to prison for nothing other than possessing marijuana. That's a state law. Now, if you start transporting it between state lines, that's federal law, but don't worry about that. For this lecture today, don't worry about that. What I'm telling you is that drug laws tend to be state laws. Laws related to things like child welfare are state laws. Education, while the federal government sets a lot of education policy and provides some funding, your local school systems are mostly funded by local funds, local taxes, local taxpayers, and the state. The state carries the majority of that burden in a lot of states, and that's something where they carry the burden, they spend the money, they decide how it's spent on education, on law enforcement. Do you see what I'm getting at here? These are things that impact your life. If you graduate from Simmons College and you're going to start a business, when you have to file something with the federal government, with the IRS, but what kind of business you have and how that's going to be classified and how you're going to have to run that business and which rules you're going to have to follow, that's mostly state law. Mostly state law. State laws have more to do with your day-to-day lives than federal law. Federal law is the ultimate law. But state law has more to do with the inner workings of it. I can keep going. If someone is accused of a violent crime, assault and battery, sexual assault, those are almost always state crimes. That means that person is prosecuted in a state court. If you don't like the verdict, you appeal the Kentucky Court of Appeals. If you don't like that decision, you appeal to the Kentucky Supreme Court in Frankfort, not the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington. See what I'm getting at? Day-to-day lives, day-to-day activities. If you, I hope you haven't, but again, statistically, we all know people that have been involved in divorce proceedings. That's state law. State law governs divorce. If somebody in your family passes away and they have some assets, so they've left it to their children and so forth, state law, state courts govern all that stuff. State law has more to do with your day-to-day lives than federal law. Okay. So why do we have to learn about federal branches of government and all these federal laws the last couple weeks? Because they override state law whenever there's a conflict. Whenever there's a question of whether or not, state law says one thing, federal says another, the federal law wins. When that's the case. When that's the case, the federal law wins. All right. Local government. Local government's a little convoluted compared to federal and state because there are different branches, but it varies. It varies based on what locality you are in, what municipality, which is another way of saying local government, that you are in. When people say local government, they're generally referring to both city and county governments. Kentucky has 120 counties. By the way, when I say stats like that, you don't have to memorize that. Not for this class. I'm just telling you so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. Kentucky has 120 counties. 2 of those counties, Fayette and Jefferson, have governments that are very different from the other 118 counties. Why is that? Well, as some of you know, when I said those county names, Jefferson is Louisville, Fayette County is Lexington. The 2 biggest cities, by kind of a long shot, the 2 biggest cities in Kentucky. Those cities and counties have combined their governments. That's why you don't have Louisville City Police and Jefferson County Police. You have Louisville Metro Police. You don't have a county judge executive, the executive of the county, like you do in rural counties. In Jefferson County, you have a mayor, just a mayor, for the city and the county. Same person. What does local government do? Well, they obviously have police of their own. Through tax revenue, they fund police departments, fire departments. In Kentucky, funding education is a little complicated, but in states like Tennessee, the local government also oversees the education system, public education system. Cities do a lot, not all, but a lot of the maintenance, repairs, and building of local streets and roads, sidewalks, that kind of thing. cities and county governments do a lot of public safety issues like that. One thing I'll say is that I love Louisville, Kentucky to death. I lived in that city for 16 years. But local government could provide more services than it does to its people. It's true for any city. It's true for any city. And while the LMPD was mostly, compared to some other large cities in America, mostly kept out of the news for those 16 years I lived there, I don't have to tell y'all, I hope you already know, that the last almost a year now, wow, the better part of a year, LMPD has been exposed in a number of ways, as has our local government. I'm not hating on local government in general, but the leadership at the top, and also certainly the police, have some problems. So that's local government. That's local government. They levy taxes. They have multiple branches, just like state and federal. I say multiple branches. In Kentucky, that's the executive mayor, and then also the city council, Louisville's case, the Metro Council. And that's all you need to know about that for now. I mean, I could talk about local government for a while, but it gets very nuanced, and it becomes a more difficult topic as you go. And I'm sorry, y'all. Once again, my dog wants me to play as I'm recording this late at night. Hey, buddy, say hi. Yeah, he's a good boy. Anyway, with that, we talked about the levels of government, and I want to get y'all ready for the quiz on Wednesday. See, this is the 8th. Yeah, so coming up Wednesday. I think most of y'all, I'm doing this so late, are going to see this video on Tuesday the 9th. I want to tell you, don't freak out about having to do the quiz on the 10th on Wednesday, because what I'll do is I'll post a video. It'll probably be, once again, late in the evening or at night, and you watch it at your own convenience. And I'm going to assign the quiz sometime the night of Wednesday, February 10th, but just like all the videos in this class, I don't expect you to watch it right away. And I'm going to give you until Monday. I believe that's some math in my head. That's 15th. Yeah, 15th to get that quiz into me. So don't freak out. But do study, do prepare, do review the lecture. If you have the textbook already, please look at the assigned readings in there. If you have questions about the content in the class so far, reach out to me about that. But we'll talk about the quiz on Wednesday. In the meantime, thank you all for watching the video. My dog has gotten a hold of one of my guitar picks, and I'm going to try to get that out of his mouth. That's going to be tough. But that's not why I'm ending the video. I've talked about levels of government. We're going to talk more about these levels of government later in the semester, but I've given you the overview that you're going to need to know for Wednesday's quiz. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're having a safe and decent week so far, and I will talk to you all sometime Wednesday night. Thank you.